Daniel Williams' bloodied fist smashes through the mirror like a raging meteor. Shards of glass erupt across the psychiatric hospital corridor, each fragment reflecting the agony of a 19-year-old carrying an impossible secret. "I am his son," his voice resounds through the white walls like thunder. "Michael Jordan is my father." Blood streams between his fingers, yet Daniel feels no physical pain. The anguish consuming him is far more profound. His intense eyes gleam with a conviction that unnerves anyone daring to look directly into them. Nurse Sarah Collins rushes down the corridor, her footfalls echoing on the cold linoleum. She has witnessed hundreds of crises, but something in Daniel's gaze makes her hesitate. It isn't madness she perceives. It is pure desperation from someone who knows a truth no one believes. "Daniel, I need you to compose yourself," Sarah whispers, approaching slowly. "You don't understand," Daniel replies, his voice trembling between sobs. "I remember the day they separated me from him. I remember his hands holding me. I remember his voice singing to me." Sarah stops completely. In 3 years working on the psychiatric ward, she has never seen a schizophrenic patient describe memories with such emotional precision. Typically, they are confused, distorted fragments. But Daniel speaks like someone who truly lived every moment. "He has a small scar on his right arm," Daniel continues, wiping the blood on his hospital gown. "Crescent moon-shaped. No one knows this. Only I do." Sarah's heart races. This specific detail about Michael Jordan is not something an institutionalized youth would have access to. It's not information that appears in magazines or interviews. "Daniel, how do you—" "He doesn't know I exist," Daniel whispers, his eyes welling up with tears. "Not yet." Minutes later, the therapy room feels like an icebox. White walls, 2 chairs, and a small table, where Dr. Patricia Stone scribbles obsessively in her notepad. She is an elegant, 50-year-old white woman, her gold-rimmed spectacles perfectly perched, but her smile carries something that sends shivers down Daniel's spine. "Daniel, these delusions about Michael Jordan?" She pronounces each word as if savoring something bitter. "When exactly did they begin?" Daniel straightens up in his chair. His lean, tall frame seems to fill all available space, as if his presence transcended his physical dimensions. "They're not delusions," he responds with a conviction that causes Dr. Stone to momentarily halt her writing. "I remember the day I was separated from him. Daniel, you're 19 years old. Michael Jordan retired when you were just 3, Daniel interjects. "I remember the house. Blue walls. There was a Space Jam poster on my bedroom wall. He gave me that poster." A chill runs down Dr. Stone's spine. Too many specific details. Memories that are too coherent. This is not typical of paranoid schizophrenia. "Tell me more about these memories," she says, striving to maintain a professional tone. "He used to call me Little Champ." Daniel closes his eyes as if reliving each moment. His voice was deeper in the mornings. "He would make pancakes on Sundays and always burn the first one. Always." Dr. Stone's pen comes to a complete stop. Her hands begin to tremble imperceptibly, but Daniel doesn't notice. He is lost in his memories. "There was a woman too, brown hair, smelled of vanilla. She cried a lot. I didn't understand why she cried so much." "What woman, Daniel?" "I don't know her name, but she would hug me and say it was temporary, that Dad would come back for me." Dr. Stone swallows hard. Her fingers clench the pen so tightly that her knuckles turn white. "Daniel, are you certain these are real memories?" He opens his eyes and gazes directly at her. There is no hesitation. There is no doubt. "Doctor, I may be confused about many things, but I know who my father is." Dr. Stone snaps her notepad shut. Her hands tremble more visibly now. The cold floor of the solitary confinement cell has transformed into an impromptu art gallery. Daniel is crouched, using a piece of charcoal he managed to conceal from the infirmary to create something that defies any medical explanation. These are not the scribbles of a psychiatric patient. They are detailed, accurate, almost photorealistic portraits. Michael Jordan in at least 15 different poses. But they are not the famous poses from posters or commercials. They are intimate moments. Jordan smiling casually. Jordan holding a cup of coffee. Jordan gazing thoughtfully out the window. Sarah Collins stops at the bars of the cell, her keys nearly slipping from her grasp. My God, Daniel, how did you... I dream of him every night. Daniel doesn't lift his eyes from the drawings. Every night they both visit me. But it's not just Michael Jordan. There are other faces. A brown-haired woman with sorrowful eyes, an older bearded man, smiling, a house with distinct architectural details, a dog running in the yard. Who are these people, Daniel? My real family. He finally lifts his gaze. They seek me in dreams. They know I am lost. Sarah approaches the bars, studying each drawing. The technique is remarkable for someone without formal artistic training. But what disquiets her is the emotional consistency. Each face conveys a familiarity that cannot be fabricated. Daniel, have you seen these individuals before? Outside of dreams? I was young, but I remember the scent of the house. I remember the sound of the front door closing. I remember their voices speaking softly when they thought I was asleep. He points to the drawing of the brown-haired woman. She sang a song, always the same song. Something about when you come home. I don't remember all the lyrics, but I remember the melody. Sarah feels a chill. The level of detail is impossible for a hallucination. Schizophrenia doesn't operate this way. Daniel, do any of these faces... Do you have a sensation of having seen them somewhere real? He stops drawing and looks at her with an intensity that makes Sarah take a step back. Nurse Sarah, do you recognize anyone? She looks again at the drawings, particularly at the face of the brown-haired woman. There's something familiar, very familiar. I think You know her, don't you? Daniel whispers. Before the nurse could respond, Daniel began to scream and threw himself onto the floor. Michael Jordan is my father, the desperate young man screams. Meanwhile, the phone rings in Robert Williams' small auto repair shop at 2:37 p.m. on a Tuesday that would change his life forever. His calloused hands are smeared with oil, but he answers nonetheless. Mr. Williams, this is the State Psychiatric Hospital. Robert's stomach churns. Daniel had another episode. Is he all right? Did something happen? Sir, your son is making some very specific assertions. He claims Michael Jordan is his biological father. Robert drops the wrench. The clang echoes through the empty shop. He said, what? We understand this may seem merely part of his condition, but, Mr. Williams, the details he's providing are exceedingly specific. Dr. Stone would like to speak with you and your wife today. Robert's world begins to reel. He leans against the counter, attempting to process what he had just heard. Specifics such as things an average individual wouldn't know about Michael Jordan's personal life, matters not widely publicized. Robert closes his eyes. Memories he had attempted to suppress for years begin to resurface. Diane's bouts of uncontrollable sobbing, the muddled explanations, the nights she would weep, refusing to divulge the reason. Mr. Williams, we'll be there. There's one more thing, sir. Dr. Stone mentioned conducting a DNA test. To put this matter to rest once and for all, Robert feels the floor drop out from under him. DNA test. The words reverberate in his mind like distant church bells. Do you deem this necessary? Sir, your son is drawing faces of individuals he should have no knowledge of. Faces of Michael Jordan's immediate family members. People who receive no media coverage whatsoever. The line goes silent for a long moment. Robert hears nothing but his own hollow, ragged breaths. Mr. Williams, is there anything you'd care to disclose? Robert hangs up the phone without uttering a word. His hands quiver as he dials his home number. Diane, we need to talk. Now. The Williams family kitchen had never felt so confining. Diane is leaning against the sink, her gray hair disheveled, eyes reddened from incessant weeping. Robert stands on the opposite side of the table, his fists clenched atop the worn-scarred wood. Did you have an affair with Michael Jordan? Robert's voice reverberates through the house like a gunshot. Diane recoils as if she had been physically struck. Her tears well up with renewed intensity. Yet there's a distinct quality to them. It isn't merely sorrow, it's guilt, a crushing, suffocating guilt. Robert, you don't understand, she whispers between sobs. Then make me understand. He slams his fist onto the table. For 19 years, I raised that boy as my own son. 19 years, Diane? He is your son, she retorts, her voice cracking at the end. Don't deceive me further. The hospital said he knows things, specific things about Michael Jordan. Information only an intimate family member would possess. Diane slides down the kitchen wall until she is huddled on the floor. She clutches her knees like a frightened child. You won't understand. Then try to make me understand. Robert kneels before her. Diane, I love you. I love Daniel. But I need the truth. She raises her gaze, and what Robert sees strikes terror into him. It is more than mere guilt. It's panic. The panic of someone on the verge of losing everything. Robert. Her voice is barely a whisper. There are things you don't know. Things I could never bring myself to tell you. And what things? About how Daniel was always different. Robert feels his blood run cold. Different how? He used to have nightmares when he was little. Always the same nightmares. He'd wake up crying and screaming for people he claimed were his family. I thought he'd forget, but he never forgot, Robert finishes. Never. And now he's remembering more things. Robert rises slowly, as if each movement were agonizing. Diane, tell me the truth. Is Daniel my biological son? She closes her eyes. When she opens them again, she replies, Daniel is your son, yes. He's just sick. Sometime later, Dr. Stone's office seems smaller with 4 people crammed into it. Robert and Diane are seated side by side, yet they appear to be on different planets. Daniel is in a wheelchair, sedated after his latest episode, but his eyes still gleam with that unsettling intensity. Schizophrenia doesn't work that way, Dr. Stone is saying, pacing back and forth like a caged predator. Patients with this condition do not create organized and consistent memories. They have fragments, distortions, not complete narratives. Diane is so pale she looks translucent. What are you getting at? Robert asks, though he dreads the answer. I'm saying that Daniel may possess real, fragmented memories. Memories of a life he actually lived. Dr. Stone stops in front of Daniel, studying his face as if it were a puzzle. Daniel, can you reiterate what you told me about the scar? Right arm, Daniel replies, his voice slurred by the medication. A crescent moon shape. Dad used to say it was from when he was little. Fell off his bicycle. Dr. Stone turns to Robert and Diane. I've verified it. Michael Jordan has a scar exactly as Daniel described, in the same location, but this information has never been publicly disclosed. The silence in the office is deafening. How could he possibly know that? Robert whispers. There's only one way to find out. Dr. Stone opens a drawer and retrieves a DNA testing kit. We're going to do a test with Michael Jordan. Diane abruptly rises from her chair. This is madness. You can't just... I've already contacted his team, Doctor. Stone interrupts. Michael Jordan has agreed to take the test. Robert feels as if he'd been punched in the gut. He agreed. He said he wants to resolve this matter, that he's willing to do whatever it takes to prove he doesn't know this boy. Daniel slowly lifts his head, fighting off the sedation. He'll remember me, he whispers. When he sees me, he'll remember everything. The following day, the entrance to the psychiatric hospital had never received so much attention. 3 black SUVs park in perfect formation. Security personnel emerge first, scanning the area with military efficiency. Then, the door of the second vehicle opens. Michael Jordan steps out as if an apparition. Even at 63, his presence fills the space in a way that makes everyone present stop and stare. He wears a perfectly tailored dark suit, dark sunglasses that conceal his eyes. I don't know this boy, he says to Dr. Stone before even greeting her. Nor his mother. This is impossible. Mr. Jordan, we appreciate your willingness to clarify this situation, Dr. Stone responds, extending her hand. Let's resolve this swiftly, Jordan says, ignoring her greeting. I have a meeting in 2 hours. They walk through the hospital corridors, Jordan's entourage creating an odd procession. Patients and staff move aside, whispering among themselves. He's in a special ward, Dr. Stone explains. Due to the nature of his manifestations, Manifestations. He has episodes when he talks about you. Very specific episodes. He describes details of your life that are not publicly known. Jordan stops walking. What kind of details? He knows about the scar on your arm, about your Sunday mornings, about your most intimate habits. Jordan removes his sunglasses. His eyes show for the first time a flicker of uncertainty. That's impossible. They arrive at the ward where Daniel is admitted. Through the reinforced glass window, they can see the young man sitting on the bed, drawing furiously. Jordan looks at Daniel and something shifts in his expression. It's not recognition. It's something more subtle, a familiarity he cannot explain. He's tall, Jordan murmurs, almost to himself. Sir? Nothing. Let's just get this over with. They enter the room. Daniel looks up and sees Michael Jordan. His hands stop drawing. Tears begin to stream down his face. Hi, Dad, he whispers. Jordan feels a peculiar sensation in his chest, a tremor he doesn't recognize. Boy, I don't know who you are, but you had a recurring nightmare, Daniel interjects, his voice gaining traction. About being lost in an empty gymnasium. You told me about that nightmare when I was 3 years old. You said I was the only one who made you feel less alone. Jordan recoils a step. That nightmare. He had never disclosed to anyone. Never. You had a fondness for making pancakes on Sundays. Daniel continues, rising from the bed. You invariably burned the first one. Always. And you would laugh and say it was tradition. Jordan's complexion visibly whitens. How do you? Because I was there, Dad. I was there with you. The hospital laboratory had never witnessed a blood collection of such palpable tension. 3 men sat in separate chairs, each representing a piece of an inscrutable enigma. Daniel is in the first chair, his slender arm outstretched. The needle pierces his skin with ease, the dark red blood flowing into the test tube as though imbued with ancient mysteries. It won't hurt, the technician whispers, but Daniel appears unperturbed by physical discomfort. His gaze is fixed on Michael Jordan, positioned 3 meters distant. Jordan is in the second chair, his muscular arm starkly contrasting with Daniel's. When the needle punctures his skin, he doesn't flinch, a professional athlete acclimated to pain. But his eyes betray a distinct unease, restlessness. Mr. Jordan, this is merely standard procedure, Doctor. Stone attempts to reassure him. I know what it is, Jordan retorts curtly. What I don't understand is how this boy knows details I have never divulged to anyone. Robert is in the third chair, the calloused hands of a mechanic trembling imperceptibly. He is not here as a suspect. He is here as… what? A father? An unknown? A victim? Mr. Williams, this must be difficult for you, the technician remarks as she collects his blood. You have no conception, Robert murmurs, his gaze fixed on Daniel. I raised this boy. I taught him to ride a bicycle. I cradled him when he wept. And now you will ascertain the truth, Dr. Stone interjects. But there is something incongruous in Dr. Stone's eyes, attention transcending mere scientific curiosity. She observes every movement, every collected drop of blood, as if a predator meticulously scrutinizing its quarry. How long for the results? Jordan asks. 72 hours, Dr. Stone replies, her hands trembling as she labels the tubes. Daniel, still with the cotton swab on his arm, stands and walks toward Jordan. May I touch your hand? He asks with a child's innocence. Jordan hesitates. Something within him screams to say no, yet he extends his hand nonetheless. The moment Daniel touches Jordan, both share the same reaction. An electric jolt, yet not a physical one. It is something far more profound, more primal. I feel you, Daniel whispers. I've always felt you. Jordan swiftly withdraws his hand, but the impact is clearly etched upon his face. Diane Williams, who had also participated in the DNA test, observes from a distance, sensing that the truth is about to surface. Everyone will soon uncover the origins of her son. Diane began to recall the day of her son's birth. The muffled sound of a newborn's cry echoes through the house. mingling with the drumming of rain against the roof. Diane, her face streaked with sweat and tears, cradles a baby in her arms. The room is disarrayed, sheets stained, a basin of warm water on the floor. Yet the moment is sacrosanct. "He's perfect," she whispers, unable to stem her tears. Robert, kneeling beside her, his hands still smeared with blood and hope, kisses her forehead, then little Daniel. "You did it, my love. Our son, our warrior." It was a home birth, emergency, rapid, intense, just the two of them. Diane gazes at the baby as if the entire world resided within that tiny face. But the moment is fleeting. Robert rises hastily. He grabs his bag beside the door. The clock reads 3 a.m. "I wish I could stay, Diane, but the flight is at 6 a.m. The contract in Berlin cannot wait." Diane nods, striving to be strong. "Just come back to us. He'll be here waiting for you." Robert kisses the baby one last time and rushes out the door, his eyes brimming with tears. Diane remains alone in the room, her newborn in her arms. She looks at her son with a mixture of love and fear. "It will just be us for a while, my angel." Robert finally returned when Daniel was already 3 years old and did not recognize his own father. And only Diane knew what had transpired in his father's absence. The day to disclose the DNA results arrives. Dr. Stone's office feels diminished by the sheer weight of the revelations it is poised to unveil. She clasps the DNA test results as though they were grenades poised to detonate. Robert, Diane, and Michael Jordan are seated, awaiting. Daniel is in a wheelchair, sedated yet conscious. His gaze shifts among the adults as if he were a mere spectator to his own unfolding destiny. "The results are in, Doctor," Stone announces, her voice unnaturally strained. "Well?" Jordan asks, his impatience palpable. Dr. Stone tears open the envelope with trembling hands. She scans the contents, and her expression undergoes a complete transformation. It is not relief. It is panic. "Daniel is not Michael Jordan's biological son," she declares. Jordan exhales a sigh of relief. "Well, that settles it." "He's also not Robert Williams' biological son," she continues. Robert rises from his chair. "What did you say?" "Nor is he Diane Williams' biological son." The silence in the office is deafening. Diane's face pales to an ashen white. The silence in the room transforms into an abyss. Diane freezes, utterly paralyzed. Robert stares at her, unblinking. His face begins to flush crimson. "This cannot be true," he shouts, his voice nearly failing him. "I delivered Diane's baby. I saw that boy born. Isn't that right, Diane?" Diane remains unresponsive. Her eyes are fixed on the floor. Her hands clench the bench so tightly that her knuckles turn stark white. "Diane?" Robert presses, his voice now fractured between rage and despair. She finally lifts her gaze, tears already streaming down her face. "Forgive me, Robert." "Forgiveness? Forgiveness for what?" Diane takes a deep, shuddering breath, as if plunging into the depths before confessing what should never have been uttered. "Our son, our baby, he died just hours after birth." Robert stands motionless, comprehension eluding him. "What do you mean, died?" "You were about to return from your trip. Our 3-year-old son died, choking on milk because I was distracted and left him unsupervised. And I went into shock. I couldn't accept it. I couldn't bury that dream. I went to the hospital and saw a baby with the same features, the same skin tone, the same eyes, and I had help from someone and brought him home, as if he were ours. And I never told you because I knew you would leave me." Robert brings his hands to his head. The room spins around him. He does not scream. He does not explode. He simply murmurs, "You made me love a son who wasn't even ours." "He is ours, Robert, in every way that matters. But I know I lied, and I never stopped fearing the day the truth would surface." "Then who are this child's biological parents?" Jordan inquires, gazing at Daniel as if seeing him for the first time. Daniel lifts his head, fighting against the lingering sedation. "I told you." His voice is faint but clear. "I told you you wouldn't believe me. I'm an orphan. No one wants me." "That's not true," Robert approaches him. "Son, I raised you. You are my son, no matter what any test says. But I'm not your son, Daniel looks at him with tear-filled eyes. And I'm not her son, and I'm not his son. He points to each of the adults. So whose son am I? The question reverberates through the office like a cry of anguish. No one has an answer. We'll find out, Jordan says, catching everyone off guard. We'll discover who his biological parents are. Why would you do that? Diane asks. Jordan looks at Daniel, and his eyes betray something that wasn't there before. Compassion, protection. Because he may not be my biological son, but he is a lost child, and every lost child deserves to be found. The isolation cell reverberates with Daniel's cries. He had torn all his drawings from the walls and shredded them as if each scrap of paper were a lie he had believed for years. Where are my true parents? His voice shatters amidst desperate sobs. Sarah Collins observes through the reinforced window, her heart breaking. In 3 years of working at the hospital, she had never seen a patient collapse like this. It's not a psychotic episode. It's unadulterated grief. You lied! All of you lied! Daniel picks up the fragments of his drawings and hurls them against the walls. Michael Jordan in 1,000 pieces. Diane in 1,000 pieces. Robert in 1,000 pieces. His imaginary family disintegrating along with his sanity. Daniel, please, Sarah says, opening the cell door and jeopardizing her own safety. You need to calm down. I have no one, he screams, collapsing to his knees on the cold floor. I have no one in this world. But then something catches Sarah's attention. Among the shredded drawings, there is one that Daniel had protected, one he clutches to his chest as if it were the only treasure he had left. Daniel, show me that drawing. He hesitates, then extends the paper. It's a drawing of a crying woman. But it's not just any crying woman. It's a specific face, with details that betray a profound emotional connection. Who is she? Sarah asks gently. She used to hold me when I cried, Daniel whispers. She used to sing a song about coming home. Do you remember the song? Daniel closes his eyes and begins to hum. It's a simple melody, yet laden with emotion. A lullaby Sarah had never heard before. She used to call me... Daniel stops humming and gazes directly at Sarah. Caleb Jr. A jolt runs down Sarah's spine. Daniel, are you certain of that name? It's the only name I remember. Before they called me Daniel, I was Caleb Jr. Sarah looks again at the drawing of the crying woman. There's something in that face, something that triggers a distant memory. Daniel, I need to make some calls. Can you settle down for a bit? Are you going to abandon me again? He asks with the voice of a frightened child. No, darling. This time we're going to find you. Meanwhile, Michael Jordan's office in Chicago resembles a temple dedicated to success. Trophies, photographs, mementos of a legendary career. But today, Jordan is seated behind his massive desk, gazing at pictures of Daniel strewn before him. Mr. Jordan, his assistant, David, enters the room. The private investigators you hired are here. 2 individuals enter the room. James Mitchell, formerly with the FBI, graying hair and eyes that have seen it all. Beside him, Sandra Torres, an expert in missing persons cases. Have you reviewed the file I sent? Jordan asks without lifting his gaze from the photographs. We have, James replies. A fascinating case. A 19-year-old with no birth record until the age of 3. How is that possible? Jordan finally raises his eyes. There are several possibilities, Sandra explains, opening her laptop. Illegal adoption, abduction, baby swapping, child trafficking. Jordan's stomach churns. Child trafficking? Mr. Jordan, young Daniel possesses physical characteristics that suggest he may have been selected, James says carefully. Selected how? Infants with certain characteristics are more highly valued on the black market for adoptions. Infants who can be readily integrated into specific families. Jordan rises and walks to the window, looking down at the city of Chicago below. Do you believe he was stolen from a family? It's a possibility we need to investigate, Sandra replies. But we must ask, why are you pursuing this? The DNA test proved he is not your son. Jordan remains silent for a long moment. When he turns, his eyes reveal a vulnerability few have ever witnessed. Because it's the right thing to do. Find his family. no matter the cost, no matter where you have to look. That boy deserves to know where he came from. We'll start with Dr. Stone, James states. There's something about her that doesn't add up. What have you uncovered? She has worked in numerous orphanages and hospitals over the past 20 years. Always cases involving infants and young children. And always irregularities. The basement of the state psychiatric hospital shouldn't exist. Officially, it's merely a repository of disused equipment. But James Mitchell and Sandra Torres discovered there was far more lurking in the shadows. Here, Sandra whispered, illuminating a locked door with her flashlight. The archives we found show that Dr. Stone maintained unofficial records. James forced the lock with expert precision. The door swung open, revealing a room that seemed ripped from a horror film. Files stacked to the ceiling, photos of children plastered on the walls, documents strewn across makeshift tables. My God, Sandra whispered. They began to examine the files. These were no ordinary medical records. They were detailed profiles of families. Families who had lost infants. Families who were desperate. Families who would do anything for a child. Look at this, James showed a file to Sandra. A list of potential clients. Individuals willing to pay for infants with specific characteristics. Sandra picked up another file. Her face drained of color. James, look at this. A list of suppliers. Orphanages, hospitals, abortion clinics. This is a network, James murmured. A full-fledged baby trafficking operation. They continued their search until Sandra cried out, I found it! Daniel Williams' file. She opened the folder. Inside were photos of Daniel as an infant, forged documents, and a name that made both of them stop breathing. Caleb Santos Jr., Sandra read aloud. Born March 15th, 2005. Parents, Michelle Santos and Caleb Santos. Michelle Santos, James repeated. That name, it sounds familiar. They continued reading. The story unfolded like a nightmare. Michelle Santos, a 20-year-old widow, Sandra continued to read. 3-year-old infant disappeared from General Hospital in 2005. Case filed away. But look at this. She pointed to a handwritten notation in the document's margin. Client Williams confirmed. Payment received. Transfer finalized, James read. Transfer finalized. They're not talking about legal adoption. Sandra pulled another document from the folder. Here it is, a forged death certificate for Michelle Santos, signed by Dr. Stone. And here, James found another paper, a forged birth certificate for Daniel Williams, also signed by her. They stood in silence, processing the sheer magnitude of their discovery. How many children? Sandra whispered. James scanned the room at hundreds of similar files. Dozens, perhaps hundreds. And Daniel is merely one victim among many, but he is the one who can bring all of this down. The following day, the hospital's conference room is packed. Michael Jordan, Robert, Diane, Dr. Stone, James Mitchell, and Sandra Torres are all present. Daniel is in a wheelchair, more alert than he has been in days. What did you uncover? Jordan asked pointedly. James opens a thick folder. We've uncovered that Daniel Williams doesn't exist. Legally, he was never born. What does that mean? Robert asked. It means that the child you know as Daniel is, in fact, Caleb Santos Jr., who disappeared in 2005. Diane turns ashen. That's impossible. I adopted him legally? Mrs. Williams, Sandra interjects, you didn't adopt anyone. You purchased a stolen child. The silence in the room is deafening. I had no idea, Diane screams, rising from her chair. I had no idea. Robert gazes at Diane with horror. Diane, you've done something horrific. I was desperate, Robert. Our son had died. I couldn't lose you too. So you stole another woman's child? Robert stands, his voice reverberating through the room. I didn't steal him, Diane shouts back. Doctor. Stone said he needed a family, that his mother couldn't care for him. All eyes turned to Doctor Stone, who is seated in the corner of the room, her calculating eyes observing every movement. Dr. Stone, Jordan addresses her, what do you have to say about this? I have to say there's no proof for any of what these investigators are alleging. she replies calmly. No proof? Sandra opens her laptop. We have your files. We have your records. We have evidence of a baby trafficking network that has been operating for over 20 years. Dr. Stone slowly rises. Your trespassing on private property does not constitute legal evidence. But this does, Daniel speaks for the first time, his voice clear and strong. He pulls a small digital recorder from the pocket of his hospital gown. I recorded everything, all our sessions, every time you thought I was too sedated to understand what was happening. Dr. Stone pales. You can't have... I never had schizophrenia, Daniel continues, his voice gaining strength. I had trauma from being separated from my family, but you medicated me so heavily that I began to believe I was insane. He presses play on the recorder. Dr. Stone's voice reverberated through the room. The crucial thing is that no one raises any questions. The Williams family paid handsomely for this child. They won't scrutinize the origin. The silence in the room was absolute. I feigned a worse condition so that you would keep me here, Daniel continued, because I knew that if I left, you would make me disappear, just as you did with other children. Dr. Stone moved toward the door, but James obstructed her exit. Dr. Patricia Stone, you are under arrest. Meanwhile, at that very moment, Michelle Santos was in the same cramped apartment where she had lived for the past 16 years. The walls were covered with photos of her 3-year-old son, missing child posters, and newspaper clippings detailing similar cases. She had never ceased her search. In 2005, her son disappeared when he was taken to the hospital for a fever. She had left him taking medication, and when she returned, he had vanished. That same year, his father died in a motorcycle accident. At 38, Michelle appeared aged beyond her years. The years of anguish had etched deep lines onto her face, but her eyes still gleamed with a hope that refused to die. The telephone rang. She answered with her customary blend of dread and anticipation. Michelle Santos? The voice on the other end was professional, yet gentle. Yes? My name is Sandra Torres. I'm a private investigator. I'm contacting you regarding your son, Caleb Jr. Michelle felt her legs buckle. She clutched the kitchen table for support. Have you found my baby? Miss Santos, we believe so. But he is no longer a baby. He is 19 years old now. Michelle slumped into the chair, tears streaming down her face. He's alive? My boy is alive. He is alive, and he remembers you. He remembers me? Her voice broke into sobs. He never stopped dreaming of you. He has been drawing your face for years. Michelle rushed to the bedroom and pulled open a drawer. Inside, meticulously preserved, lay Caleb Jr.'s tiny clothes and toys, each piece cherished as if his return were imminent. Can he see me? She asked, clutching a small blue shirt against her chest. There are some things we need to explain first. He has endured significant trauma. He was unnecessarily medicated. He believes he is insane. My baby isn't insane. He's just a lost boy who wants to come home. Michelle rose and walked to the window, gazing out at the street. Do you think my son will forgive me? Miss Santos? For failing to protect him, for having allowed him to be taken, for not having been strong enough to find him before his father died. Mrs. Santos, your son has spent 16 years dreaming of the day you would be reunited. There is nothing to forgive. The corridor of the psychiatric hospital stretches interminably before Michelle Santos. Each step reverberates off the white walls like a drum beating in rhythm with her unbridled heart. Her legs quiver, not from fear, but from a hope that incisors more profoundly than any wound. She clutches to her chest, the only photograph remaining from those 16 years of relentless searching. Caleb Jr. at 3 years of age. His smile illuminated the entire house, luminous eyes brimming with vitality. He has changed profoundly. Sandra Torres, the private investigator hired by Michael Jordan, whispers beside her, endeavoring to brace her for the inescapable. 16 years have utterly transformed his babyish features. But his eyes, Michelle? His eyes are precisely identical to yours. Michelle halts abruptly in the middle of the corridor. Her breath hitches, as if the air has grown denser. What if he doesn't recognize me? The question emanates as a desperate whisper. What if, after all this time, he perceives me as a stranger? And what if he hates me for failing to safeguard him when he needed it most? Sandra touches her arm with the tenderness of one who comprehends a mother's anguish. Michelle, listen intently to what I'm about to impart. When we showed Daniel your photo yesterday afternoon, he simply broke down. He wept for 2 consecutive hours. He repeated incessantly, "It's her. It's my mother. I knew she would come for me one day. He never forgot you." Tears begin to stream down Michelle's face like an inevitable downpour. She quickly wipes them away, attempting to regain her composure. 16 years, Sandra. 16 years scouring every street, every shelter, every orphanage in this city. 16 years waking up in the early hours, hearing his phantom weeping. 16 years blaming myself, undermining myself, reconstituting myself solely to persist in my quest. Today, all of this culminates, Sandra responds with unwavering conviction. Today, you finally take your son home. They arrive at the door of room 304. Through the small tempered glass window, Michelle can discern a silhouette that brings her world to an absolute standstill. A tall, slender young man sits on the hospital bed, compulsively sketching in a crumpled notebook, as if his very existence hinged on those strokes. Michelle approaches the window with tentative movements, as one might draw near a miracle. Her heart ceases its beat for a full, agonizing second. It's him. Impossible, yet undeniably him. The angular contours of his face, inherited from his father. His upright bearing, even while seated. The profound, almost hallowed concentration Caleb Santos exhibited when drafting the blueprints for the buildings he constructed. The identical furrowed brow when deeply absorbed in something significant. "My God in heaven," she whispers, her legs suddenly buckling as if about to give way. "It's my Caleb Jr. It's my boy. My baby has grown." Within the room, Daniel raises his gaze from his drawing. The pencil slips from his trembling hand, clattering onto the linoleum floor with a reverberation that seems to stretch into eternity. He rises slowly, painstakingly slowly, as if beholding a sacred apparition that might dissipate with any abrupt movement. His hands tremble uncontrollably. "Mother?" he whispers, his voice fracturing, his outstretched fingers touching the window pane. The word pierces the glass, striking Michelle's chest like a precisely aimed bullet. Her hand flies to her chest, feeling her heart pound. "He recognized me," she whispers to Sandra, her voice laced with disbelief. "After 16 years apart, my son recognized me." Michelle does not wait for permission. She shoves the doorknob forcefully, but Sandra grips her arm. "Michelle, wait a moment. I need to prepare you," Sandra whispers urgently. "He is emotionally highly vulnerable. It's been years of inappropriate medication, years of being treated as if mentally unwell when, in truth, he was merely traumatized. Traumatized by having been violently separated from his own family." Michelle whirls around, her eyes ablaze with a determination that could move mountains. "He is my son, Sandra," she states with an unwavering conviction that slices through the air. "I bore this child in my womb for 9 months. I felt his first quickening. I held him in my arms when he was born. I heard his first cry. I have endured 16 infernal years for this moment. Nothing in this world, nothing at all, will prevent me from embracing my boy." The door clicks open, a sound that resonates like the starting gun for a new life. Michelle enters the room slowly, each step laden with immeasurable weight. Daniel is leaning against the white wall, his back pressed against the cold concrete, as if fearing she might dissipate into the ether, should he make any sudden move. "Are you real?" he whispers, his voice laden with the vulnerability of a lost child. "You won't disappear if I blink? I am real, my love. I am flesh and blood. And you are real. And we have finally found each other after all this time." Daniel takes a hesitant step towards her. His bare feet make an almost inaudible sound on the cold floor. Then he stops, as if an invisible barrier prevents him from continuing. I dreamed of you every night," he says, tears springing from his eyes like wellsprings. "Every single goddamn night. But the doctors always said it was delirium, that my mind was creating fantasies to cope with the trauma, that you didn't exist. It wasn't a delusion, my son, Michelle replied, her voice thick with emotion. It never was a delusion. It was your heart remembering. It was your soul calling out to me across time and distance. Daniel edged a few more inches closer. When they were separated by barely an arm's length, he halted again. His hands quivered like leaves in the wind. "Where is my father?" he whispered, his voice fracturing like glass. "Where is Dad? Why didn't he come with you?" Michelle squeezed her eyes shut. The question she had always known was inevitable, the profoundest agony she had borne alone all these years. He passed away many years ago, my love," she whispered, each word an excision from her soul. "He died searching for me," Daniel whispered, his legs buckling. "He died because of me, because of my absence." "No!" Michelle cried, rushing to steady him before he could collapse. "It was never your fault. Never, never your fault." She cradled Daniel's face between her trembling hands, the face she had kissed 1,000,000 times in her dreams, the face she had envisioned aging day by day. "Your father died of a broken heart, my son. He died of pure love for you. He never, not for a single second, ceased his search. He never stopped believing you were alive somewhere. And that is not your fault. That is the most exquisite testament to how unconditionally you were loved." He truly loved me," Daniel whispered, like a 3-year-old questioning the existence of Santa Claus. "He loved you more than life itself," Michelle replied, her hand tenderly caressing her son's face. "When you vanished, he sold every valuable possession we owned. He mortgaged our home. He borrowed money from every acquaintance. He hired private investigators with funds we simply didn't possess. He affixed posters with your photograph to every lamppost in the city." Michelle gently wiped away the tears that streamed down her son's face. "He slept in your empty crib every night for years. He said that when you returned home, you would smell his presence there. You would know that Dad never, not for a fleeting moment, relinquished his hope for you." Daniel utterly collapsed into his mother's arms, like a rag doll deprived of its very structure. "I remembered him vaguely," he sobbed against her shoulder. "I remembered a strong man who would toss me high into the air and catch me, who called me little architect because I meticulously stacked wooden blocks." "You stacked those blocks with remarkable precision," Michelle whispered, stroking her son's hair just as she used to when he was a little boy. "Exactly like your father arranging bricks on a construction site. You were 3 years old when they stole me from you, when they ripped you from our lives as if tearing out our very hearts." They embraced with an intensity that seemed to yearn to reclaim every lost second of those 16 years. 16 years of pain, of desperate searching, of hope crushed and then reborn like a phoenix, converged in that improbable embrace. "Forgive Mommy for failing to protect you," Michelle whispered into her son's ear, the words escaping like a confession. "Forgive Daddy for dying before he could find me," Daniel whispered back, clinging to her as if she were the last plank in a shipwreck. "There's nothing to forgive, my love. Absolutely nothing. You are both the victims in this narrative. You were both stolen by soulless individuals. But the fault was never ever yours." Michelle pulled back just enough to look directly into her son's eyes, the very same eyes she saw in the mirror every day. "But it's over now. Now you're coming home, to your true home, to the family that never, not for a single day, stopped loving you." Can I come with you now?" Daniel asked with the innocent simplicity of a child asking for a treat. "You are coming with me, today, right now. No one will ever separate us again. I will kill or die before I let anyone lay a hand on you again." Daniel instinctively touched the birthmark on his neck, a gesture he had made since he was a baby. "Do you remember this mark here?" "I used to kiss it religiously every night before you went to sleep," Michelle replied, touching the small mark with the tip of her finger. "I told you it was where God had touched you with his finger to mark you as special, as chosen." "I would touch it whenever I felt extremely scared or incredibly lonely," Daniel confessed. "I felt that someone, somewhere, had loved me precisely there. It was my link to a family I couldn't quite remember. Someone loved you, my son. Someone loves you now. I love you more than anything in this world. I have always loved you, even when I didn't know where you were. Daniel gazed at the drawings scattered across the hospital bed, like confetti from a somber celebration. I drew you incessantly, Mom, every single day. The doctors thought it was an unhealthy obsession, but I knew deep within my soul that one day you would appear to come for me. Michelle picks up one of the drawings with reverent hands. It is her face, perfect in every minute detail, as if he had seen her just yesterday, as if they had never been parted. How could you remember with such precision? The heart remembers, Mom, Daniel replies with a soul-piercing wisdom. Even when the mind erases everything, even when the medication clouds the mind, the heart remembers. The heart never forgets those we love. For the first time in 16 long years, Michelle smiles, a full, genuine, luminous smile, the smile of a mother who had finally found her lost child. Let's go home, Caleb Jr. Let's finally go home. Can I call you Mom forever? The question shatters Michelle into 1,000 pieces and reconstructs her all at once. You can call me Mom for the rest of our lives. You are my son. You always have been my son. And no one else, ever again, will be able to take that away from us. Daniel gets up and walks to the small bedroom window. He gazes out at the world as if seeing it for the very first time. Mom, do you think Dad is watching us now? I am absolutely certain of it, my love, Michelle replies, joining him at the window. He is watching and he is smiling. He is finally at peace because the most important mission of his life has been fulfilled. What mission? To love you so much, so intensely, that you could never completely forget. To love you so much that you would be able to survive until I could find you and bring you back home. Daniel turns to look directly at his mother. I survived, Mom. Against all odds, I made it. I waited for you all these years. And I found you, my love, and I will never ever leave you alone again. Michelle extends her hand to her son, the same hand that had held his when he took his first steps. Shall we? Shall we start our lives anew? Shall we reclaim lost time? Daniel takes his mother's hand firmly, interlacing their fingers as if he wished to merge with her. Let's, Mom. Let's go home. Let's go where I've always belonged. As they leave the room together, hand in hand, Sandra Torres wipes away a defiant tear that insists on falling. In 20 years of investigating cold cases, she had rarely witnessed happy endings. But sometimes, very rarely, divine justice unfolds. Sometimes shattered families are reunited. Sometimes love triumphs over all the malevolence in the world. And when that occurs, it is the most sublime phenomenon in the universe. The hospital interrogation room is fraught with tension. Dr. Patricia Stone sits in a metal chair, her hands cuffed to the table. Her erstwhile elegance has vanished, replaced by an expression of calculated despair. James Mitchell is seated across the table, a stack of evidence between them. Sandra Torres leans against the wall, her gaze fixed on Dr. Stone's every movement. 23 years, James states calmly. 23 years of pilfering infants from indigent families and vending them to the affluent. I stole no one, Dr. Stone counters, her voice, however, devoid of its former assurance. We possess your files. We possess your notes. We possess recordings of your confessions. Those recordings were acquired illicitly by a minor who was being held and deceptively medicated, Sandra interjects. That will not bolster your defense. James opens the initial file. Michelle Santos, infant vanished in 2005. You were employed at the hospital and facilitated his sale to Diane Williams for $50,000. I was assisting families, Dr. Stone attempts to rationalize. Families who were unable to conceive. A lie, James slams his hand onto the table. You were annihilating families, impoverished families who lacked the means to contend with the system. Dr. Stone's facade finally shatters. Her eyes betray a cold, ruthless glint. Those children had a superior chance, she utters with a virulent tone. A chance to mature in stable households with families capable of affording them opportunities. Opportunities, Sandra closes in on the table. Such as the opportunity to mature without knowledge of their origins? Such as the opportunity to be needlessly medicated for years on end? Some choices are arduous, Dr. Stone persists. her genuine nature now laid bare. But someone must undertake these decisions. And you unilaterally appointed yourself arbiter of who merits parenthood and who does not? James demands. I observed these young, unwed, widowed, and impecunious mothers, and then I considered established couples, desperate for a child. The calculus was straightforward. The calculus? Sandra exclaims, her voice rising. You are discussing children, not mere figures. I am speaking of reality. Dr. Stone rises, her voice escalating in aggression. How many of those children would have truly prospered had they remained with their biological mothers? How many would have genuinely afforded real opportunities? James regards her with unadulterated revulsion. And you decided that based on their skin color and the adoptive family's bank accounts. I decided based on social reality. You decided based on racism and greed, Sandra retorts. Dr. Stone resumes her seat, realizing her words had condemned her. You will never be able to substantiate any wrongdoing on my part, she says, attempting to recover her composure. We don't need to. James smiles for the first time. Your own words, recorded by your own victim, have already proven everything. He stands and walks toward the door. Dr. Patricia Stone, you will be charged with child trafficking, document forgery, misadministration of medication, and conspiracy. That should amount to at least 20 years in prison. You don't understand, she shouts as they exit. I was doing what was best. For whom? Sandra asks, pausing at the doorway. Certainly not for the children you destroyed. The next day, the hospital room is quiet. Daniel is sitting on the bed, more lucid than he has been in years. Beside him, Michelle holds his hand. Across the room, Michael Jordan, Robert, and Diane are seated in chairs. There's something I need to tell you all, Daniel says, his voice clear and steady. What is it, son? Michelle asks gently. I'm not mentally ill. I never was. We know, dear. No, you don't understand. Daniel gets out of bed. I feigned a more severe condition than I had. Everyone in the room falls silent. What do you mean? And all those things you claim to remember? The pancakes? The Space Jam poster? The scar on your arm? Jordan asks. Daniel looks at him. A wistful half-smile crosses his face. It was all true, but not in the way you thought. He takes a deep breath. His eyes turn to Jordan. My biological father, Caleb Santos. He was obsessed with Michael Jordan. He knew everything. He recounted every detail as if he were speaking of a relative. He used to say that when I grew up, I would be just like him. He called me Little Champion. He used to lull me to sleep with stories of the games, the practices, the interviews. Michelle covers her mouth, tears streaming down her face. He really did that. I was 3 years old when I was taken away. But the mind retains more than we imagine, Daniel continues. And in the hospital, when they started talking about Jordan, it triggered the memories. And I started to confuse everything. But then I realized it wasn't delirium. It was longing. It was trauma. It was true but incomplete. Everyone was deeply moved by Daniel's words. Over the past 2 years, I realized something was amiss. The medications made me dizzy, but when I feigned taking them and hid the pills, I could think more clearly. You didn't take your medication? Diane asked, her voice laced with concern. Not all of it. And when I stopped taking them, my memories became sharper. I started recalling more things that made no sense if I were truly your son. Daniel walked over to the window. So I began investigating on my own. When no one was looking, I sought out information. I questioned staff members. I observed behaviors. And what did you uncover? Robert inquired. I discovered that Dr. Stone was lying. About everything. About my condition, about my medication, about my history. He turned to face them. Then I started recording our sessions. I hid a recorder in my pajama pocket. For months, I recorded everything. Daniel, that was perilous, Michelle said, her apprehension clear. I knew it was dangerous, but I also knew that if I didn't do something, I would never escape that place, and I would never find my true family. Jordan stood up and approached Daniel. You are braver than any athlete I know. I'm not brave. I was afraid, but I was more afraid of never discovering who I truly am. Daniel picked up the digital recorder from his nightstand. There's more here. Conversations between Dr. Stone and other people. Names of other families. Other children. He handed the recorder to Jordan. This could help others find their true families. How did you know you could trust us? Sandra asked. I didn't know, Daniel admitted, but I saw the way Mr. Jordan looked at me. It wasn't with pity, it was with recognition, as if he understood what it was like to be lost. Jordan nodded. I understand, more than you can imagine. And I saw how Diane and Robert looked at me, Daniel continued, gazing at his adoptive parents. You loved me, even when you thought I was delusional. That gave me the strength to keep searching for the truth. We love you, Robert said, his words heavy with emotion. We always have. I know, and I love you too. You may not be my biological parents, but you raised me. You cared for me when I was unable to care for myself. Diane, who had remained silent, finally speaks. Can you forgive me for having been a party to something so dreadful? Daniel regards her for a long moment. Diane, you were desperate. You had lost a child and yearned to bestow love upon another. That does not justify what transpired, but I understand your motivations. Thank you, she murmurs through her tears. But I need to be with my mother now, Daniel states, looking at Michelle. I need to discover my true self. The corridor of the psychiatric hospital feels different today. The pervasive sense of despair that always lingered in the air is gone. Today there is hope. Michelle Santos walks toward the room where her son has spent the past several months. But today he is no longer a patient. Today he is going home. Are you ready? Sandra Torres inquires, walking alongside her. I have been ready for 16 years, Michelle responds. They stop before the door. Michelle takes a deep breath and knocks. Come in, Daniel's voice echoes from within. Michelle opens the door to find her son packing his meager belongings into a small bag. He is wearing normal clothes for the first time in months. Jeans and a t-shirt Michelle purchased for him. Ready to head home, she asks. Daniel ceases packing his things and looks at her. Mom, I no longer even know what home is. Michelle draws closer to him. Home is where you are loved unconditionally. Home is where you can be yourself without reservation. Home is where you truly belong. And do I belong with you? You have always belonged with me. Even when we were apart, you were always my son. Daniel embraces Michelle, and for the first time in 16 years, both sense they are precisely where they ought to be. Mom? Yes, my darling. Tell me about Dad. Michelle smiles through her tears. He was courageous, like you. He never relented, like you. And he loved you more than anything in the world, as I do. Would he be proud of me? He would be proud that you found your way back home. They pick up the bag and walk together down the corridor. Hospital staff members pause to bid them farewell. Some are weeping. All understand they are bearing witness to something truly special. At the hospital's entrance, a small group awaits. Robert and Diane are present, along with Michael Jordan and his team of investigators. We wanted to bid you farewell, Robert states, approaching Daniel. You will always be a part of my family, Daniel replied, embracing Robert and then Diane. You rescued me when I needed it most. Jordan approached last. Daniel, I want you to know that if you ever need anything, thank you, Mr. Jordan, for everything, for believing in me when everyone else had lost faith. You taught me something important, Jordan said. Sometimes the people we call crazy are the only ones who truly see the truth. Daniel and Michelle walked towards the car. Before getting in, Daniel turned one last time to look at the hospital. Will you miss it? Michelle asked. Number. But I will remember. I will remember everything I endured to get here. And now I want to discover who I truly am. I want to learn about my father's family. I want to visit his grave. I want to live the life I was meant to have. They got into the car and drove towards the sunset. For the first time in 16 years, mother and son were together, headed home. 6 months later, the courthouse was packed. Dr. Patricia Stone sat at the defense table, her hands shackled, her demeanor no longer that of a revered physician, but rather that of a condemned criminal. The judge began to read the sentence. Patricia Stone, You have been found guilty of child trafficking, falsification of documents, inappropriate medical administration, and conspiracy. This court hereby sentences you to 25 years of incarceration without the possibility of parole. In the victim's gallery, Daniel was seated beside Michelle. They exchanged a glance and nodded. Justice had been served. Dr. Stone is handcuffed before the glare of press cameras. The scandal erupts. Forged documents, vanished children, decades of silence purchased through power and intimidation. Yet now, the truth has finally been brought to light. You decimated lives, the prosecutor declares, upon reviewing the complete footage, and you shall be held accountable for every single one. Stone is escorted away. She offers no resistance, merely bowing her head, her voice forever muted. However, in the very same courtroom, Diane Williams occupies the defendant's bench. She is no career criminal. Rather, she is a grief-stricken mother who made an unthinkable decision, one that irrevocably altered everything. Robert stands beside her, not as her husband, but as a testament to what was lost and what was salvaged. Madam, you stand accused of the unlawful appropriation of a child, the judge states. Nevertheless, given the emotional context, the absence of financial malfeasance, the fact that the child was lovingly nurtured, and your extensive cooperation in this matter, the judge pauses. Diane does not lift her gaze, awaiting the gavel's decisive fall. The court elects not to impose a term of incarceration. Instead, it mandates alternative sanctions, supervised therapy, extensive community service, and the forfeiture of legal custody. Diane collapses into tears, not of relief, but from the crushing weight of her conscience. I accept it all, she whispers. I ask for but one thing, that he finds happiness, even if it must be apart from me. Daniel approaches the bench, remaining silent for a moment. He then leans down and gently takes her hand. Despite everything, you never ceased to love me. If this narrative resonated with you, consider subscribing to our channel. Here, each story offers a profound exploration of emotions, human dilemmas, and intricate plot twists that prompt you to reevaluate your perception of the world.